Hello dear space engineers, welcome to another episode of Stationeers News. It's 2025, May the 17th. We're now one day past the Unity deadline, which was on the 16th of May. Unity had told RocketWerkz only a few days ago that they would revoke their licenses if they wouldn't pay up, but there's no reason for them to pay up. All of that was already covered in the linked video. We haven't heard yet from RocketWerkz whether the licenses have been shut down, and I guess that's because their lawyers are talking to the Unity lawyers. So I guess they don't want to interfere with that process by making any public statements, but that's just a guess. On the 11th of May, 1 or 2 days after Unity had given RocketWerkz the bogus detailed information regarding their claim, and Rocket had posted the Reddit article about this and written the Discord announcements, Rocket wrote on Discord, "The good news is, a lot of media has reached out to me. I'm supplying them with the raw emails. I can't post the raw emails publicly as they contain the names of people who aren't even employees or associates at the studio. When you Google the data, it is very obvious they didn't even do some basic fact-checking." The YouTube channel Destin did an interview with Dean Hall on the matter on the 15th, one day before the deadline. Since Unity's initial aggressive licenses demand on RocketWerkz, based on flawed data like citing non-employees and already licensed staff, the main development from Destin's interview with Rocket is that lawyers are now involved. Dean confirmed RocketWerkz's legal team has contacted Unity's. Despite some general apologies from Unity employees on social media, there's been no direct resolution from Unity to RocketWerkz addressing the core issue of why this happened or clarifying their data collection methods. Destin also mentioned Unity didn't respond to his request for an official comment. The May 16th deadline was still on. It's a worrying trend that developers relying on Unity, especially a studio already paying tens of thousands annually, faces such pressure based on easily disprovable claims. One interesting fact stated by Rocket was that the initial email from Unity came on the 3rd of May, 13 days before the deadline. But the bogus 4 bullet point info that Dean Hall ultimately reacted to with his Discord and Reddit posts on the 9th or 10th of May, we have to consider time zones here, arrived indeed at that time. None of this changes the fact that the 16th is way too short a deadline and just feels like bullying. Bridge burning isn't exactly a new money-making scheme for Unity Technologies. The link to the interview is in the description. Same for another video by ShadowZone on the same day, one day before the deadline. That video is interesting because it's showing the receipts, so to speak. We can see the redacted email, actual invoices from Unity, not directly related to this case, Unity's stock price development, and so forth. So, long story short, the Unity problem is still ongoing and we don't know anything yet. Though I stand by my initial prognosis, ultimately nothing will come of this. Maybe for Unity, because even more people will now see that this engine shouldn't be used by anyone. But I believe RocketWerkz will just keep going. It would cost them at least $1 million, if not $2 million, to migrate Stationeers from the Unity engine to something else. Therefore, they will certainly keep going if the current Unity situation just blows over. Now let's move on to the subject of the new terrain system. Now I kept telling you that you should back up the Stationeers game, which is still a good idea, because once the new terrain system comes, not only will all your old saves break, but you will also not have any chance to roll back to an old version at some point, which may hold true in the very long term, but for now we have a clear statement from one of the devs 1.5 months ago. Matty is saying, "Don't worry, before the terrain update goes to main, we will make a new branch, freezing the current stable. You'll be able to continue playing your current save on that branch if you wish." So for those who don't know, right mouse button on the game in Steam, Properties, Betas, and then select whatever version you wish, but don't forget to turn off autosaving, else you will probably regret it. RocketWerkz will not develop software that will transition your old save games to the new terrain system, but someone from the team, Simon, said, "Correct. However, I think it will be reasonably trivial for a community-made tool to achieve this, not something that we will have the resource to maintain though." Personally, I think this is unlikely to happen. I guess people will just move on to the new system and forget about it, but of course it would be pretty cool to have. Almost 2 months ago, Simon said, "I promise we'll be pushing some cool updates to beta soon." So we have a short video here. It's certainly a different quality of terrain rendering and shading. It was 2 months ago when the devs decided to finally drop the old terrain system entirely from the beta. The main takeaway here is saves are broken and we will break them again. And of course that currently there are no actual worlds to be played on beta. We have these 4 moon maps, 1x1, 2x2, 4x4 and 8x8 kilometers in size, but they are only test maps, not edited properly, not even the correct surface texture and shader. Now some of this terrain system development stuff is pretty old, so I'll just scroll through it so you can read things yourself. The key takeaway is they will give us multiple tools for creating and editing maps, but they're still in development, so it'll take some time until we finally get to see some actual worlds in here. But it's good to know that work on the actual worlds has begun now at RocketWerkz. The terrain system is well underway, so some of this information from the beginning of April may well be out of date. Some users remarking that the level of detail feel doesn't seem correct, where things start to become blurry way too close to the player and such. Simon said, the answer is that the shader used for the terrain is a complete work in progress, and indeed the detailed texture that you see close to you is fading out far too soon for no real reason. It was just whatever work in progress value I had when I committed before presumably going to get a coffee. I've kind of shelved that until we get the final authoring pipeline nailed down. I'm really looking forward to juicing it up and making it look awesome. I'll probably be grabbing some help from the KSA team and graphics programmers. Keep in mind that the terrain you've seen so far have just been from a pack I bought somewhere. The final terrains will be made in-house. We want to maintain the core features of each of the worlds though. For example, Vulcan will still have its cracks, but I'm also imagining a large lava river that's an ordeal to pass. Mars will have massive mountains, and Europa with massive ice spires in some regions, like in the original Europa map. Do we also get lava that's more liquid? Probably not as an actual liquid, but yeah, if I get my way, it'll be more than just a painful bedrock layer. Am I smelling geothermal? Neat! Will we also get more exotic planets like, for example, an alien jungle like in Avatar with toxic atmosphere? At the moment the plan is to just do the existing planets, but as always we tend not to plan too far into the future, so it's definitely not out of the question. I'm hoping the community will provide what we can though. We are putting a lot of effort into making it as easy as possible. What about the space maps? Anything we can know about that yet? Cause it's my favorite. We will 100% be bringing back Space Map, potentially even as an area you can explore from any other planet. Jump in a rocket and go build a space station. This has already been a prototype to some degree. Some more stuff from the beginning of April by Rocket. The moon is not the moon map. We are just doing different resolutions of auto-generated moon terrain at different sizes for testing. An actual moon map will be authored by World Builder, one of the world builders who makes maps for Icarus, very talented. It is our hope over time to make different maps with the same theme. So you could, say, want to play on the moon and be presented with lots of moon theme maps that use the same material, textures, etc. There will be some randomized elements for the maps. Say a user being able to place multiple start locations on a map and then the player randomly starting at one. Once the authoring is more finalized, we need to author the replacement worlds. We want at least as much content as we have now. That will take weeks. So, to people complaining that the new maps will be pretty small since they're finite, whereas the classic maps are procedurally generated and are conceptually infinite. Rocket said at the beginning of May, the existing maps, the old terrain system, are limited and will crash and become unusable quite quickly. The new terrain system allows you to have far bigger maps. If you tried to load a save even a fraction as big as our new worlds, it would crash your game. So, while it will still probably be true that you can never get lost again on a vast planet once you roughly know the map, they will still be very big, as you can see already on the beta channel. The 8x8 kilometers map takes quite a while to traverse on foot, so it's a good thing that the rovers seem to be making a comeback, as shown in the previous video. And finally, here's some brand new information from today. Rocket says, I'm really excited about the terrain change. Tristan, one of our Icarus world builders, is working on the new worlds now, so you should see that coming in. And here's a very reasonable objection by a player. The starting world grid height does not play well with the terrain. The world boxes that we're using to build our stations are currently not well aligned with the map. Matty is saying, yeah, the plan is to author a couple of options for starting spots. We'll aim to have those areas have some flat spots that are better aligned to the large grid. Textures are still a placeholder. Our artist is working on the actual ones. And Matty said, Moon is first, because it's the most unforgiving visually. Also very much a known quantity from a terrain topology standpoint. I think we'll do Mars next probably. We'll save Vulcan and Europa for last, as we should have all the tech and pipeline issues cleaned up by then and will be free to focus on design. So that's all the information that we have now for the new terrain. The new worlds are now actually in the works. Many of the world building tools have been made, and in case I didn't mention it here, the new worlds will have zones that can be used for all kinds of stuff. Currently, they're being used to define where which ore can spawn. For example, at least for a while, on beta the new terrain moon had ices spawn only in the craters, and iron and such mostly in the other areas. But this sector concept is already used in different ways. For example, what a deep miner can find will also be depending on where you place it. So with that and rovers coming back, you see that very soon we will have a new gameplay element. We'll be building outposts. We'll be transporting stuff in between, mounted portable gas canisters on the rovers, and mined ore. All this, combined with an interesting terrain, will give us much more of a feel of being on a mission, of being in a game that has kind of a story. And this will certainly not just inform the minds of the players, but also the minds of the developer team. So in my opinion, once everything is settled in a few months, we can expect development to begin veering a little bit into the direction of missions, of something like a campaign. Some ideas in this direction have already been stated by the developers. For example, you may have to build a hospital or a hotel, or you might have to babysit some researchers. Okay, that's it for today. See you again next time.